these days in modern lifestyle, there are too many conveniences. For babies who are constantly being carried by helpers, nannies, babies who are in the boxes, capsules, right, on the back all the time in the strollers, they're being denied opportunities.
Hi everyone, welcome to White Swan by Shalini. Imagine a child who constantly trips, struggles to focus, or feels overwhelmed by everyday tasks. What if the root cause isn't just clumsiness or inattention, but something deeper? Today, we are uncovering that missing piece with a very special guest. She is the founder of Neural Connections, whose own parenting journey led her to an incredible method called the MNRI. She is dedicated to helping families and children thrive. So without further ado, let's welcome Hsiao. Hi Hsiao, how are you doing?
Good, thank you, Shalini. How are you?
I'm doing good. How's your day been like?
It's been pretty good. Yeah, very excited to be here to come and join you on this podcast.
I'm very excited to know so much about MNRI and how you help families and children around. So Shai, before starting, I would love to know about your parenting journey and how you discovered the MNRI method.
My name's Hsiao, as you know.
Yes.
I'm an educator by training, so I was a classroom teacher.
Right.
I have a beautiful family, husband, 2 teenage girls. And then the thing is that when my eldest was born, she had several challenges and medical needs. And life just changed completely. From one day, life was a certain way, and then just things just began very difficult. And she had a number of medical things that happened, and it was one thing after another. She just didn't reach her milestones. She had several. She had something called kidney hydronephrosis. She had hip dysplasia. And she was just very slow to reach all her milestones. And because she was our first baby, we were just happy, that she was healthy and she was with us.
Right.
But there were several questions that started popping up, and over time we realized that this wasn't quite normal.
Right.
Like, because she wasn't sitting up, she was always kind of floppy. Really happy baby, very easy baby. People always tell us, you're so lucky, didn't fast. She really only fasted when she couldn't sleep. Sleep was very difficult, and she I couldn't breastfeed her. There were just lots of things. And then later on, when she was about 18 months, we started the journey of therapy. So we entered another, field where she had physical therapy. And then later on, we added occupational therapy. And then we added, speech therapy. And it was just like that for several years where life was really difficult. I'm a very curious person. I think it comes down to my husband and I working as a team, and we were always questioning things, and we didn't accept that we would just continue this way.
Okay.
Because sometimes when you just keep going, you say, well, this is now, another year. It's going to be the same.
Right.
So we needed to change things. So when she was 9 years old, my husband and I, we made the conscious decision to just try and see if we could change the way things were going, like to really make a diversion or change a trajectory, right? And so then we decided to homeschool her. But actually the focus of the homeschooling was really just to get her healthier, because at that time she was also having seizures. Yeah, she was having a lot of seizures, and her seizures were very severe, where her airway would get, affected. Her breathing was affected, obviously. I mean, It was just really, really traumatic. And she was diagnosed with epilepsy at the age of 4. So by the age of 9, my husband and I said, enough is enough. Let's try and figure this out. So then I started being a stay-home mom. But I guess because of the way I am, I just like to be busy, and I researched, I looked at a lot of information. I basically started talking to parents, trying to seek information, and then decided that we needed to work with her allergies because she was always sniffly. She had a lot of cold. She had 3 times of ear tubes inserted, 3 adenoid surgeries, 1 tonsil surgery. I mean, this was 3 times altogether where we did multiple things, deviated septum, and she had eye surgery at the age of 4. We were in constant dealing with things that were happening and having to respond to things happening. Right. We were never feeling like we were in control. We never felt like we could get ahead of the things. That's why we decided, okay, let's homeschool her, because she was so anxious about her weekly spelling tests, her weekly math tests.
Right.
And when you're dealing with such big things, which is kind of life-threatening, and dealing with health, sometimes you feel like the tests are not really as important. So with the homeschooling research, then I delved deep into nutrition and for her. And because of her constant colds, her ENT issues, we looked into it and decided to change her diet quite a bit. And then I decided, okay, we needed to boost her immune system because she had antibiotics so much from the age of, these days you do 6 vaccinations in a row, 4 in 1, 6 1. And sometimes, they're necessary, but on a system that is very vulnerable, very weak to begin with, she just was very weak. And so then working on her gut, working on nutrition, trying to get her to sleep better, everything. And then one thing led to another. And then I started asking questions about her therapy because we were going to speech, OT, ST, PT, so speech therapists, occupational therapists, physical therapists. We were seeing the neurologist. This was on a weekly basis. And it just felt like we had no control. And then I said, this is not the best way to go. And then we found MNRI.
Okay.
Yeah. And so then together with nutrition and gut work, pairing with MNRI, everything changed.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, everything changed.
And she recovered and...
Yeah, she became much healthier through the work that I was doing on her foundation, which is gut as well. And then because the MNRI works with multiple modalities, and she just became healthier and healthier. She's seizure-free.
Oh.
She's no longer seeing the neurologist. We only catch up once every few years. The neurologist actually said stop all medication. This was several years ago. So since 2019, I think, something like that, she's been seizure-free, which is massive for us.
Any day.
Today, she has a cold here and there, just like your average child, very normal. She does have special needs, so she does go to a special school, and she's 16 years old today.
Oh, wow.
But really, really thriving in my eyes. So I'm super happy.
No, first of all, I want to salute you as a parent because you went through so much and then you took things in your control.
Yeah.
And then you came out of it so beautifully.
Thank you.
Really.
Thank you.
I would really like to dig a little bit deep into MNRI method as to how did you help your child and what are the things that you looked after?
MNRI is something that should be really known by everyone.
Yes.
Yeah. But it's one of those things that unless you have heard of it, you don't know it exists. But it's really amazing. So MNRI stands for the Musculoskeletal Neuro-Sensory-Motor Reflex integration. It's a real mouthful. It's a real mouthful, but it is amazing. Yeah.
Right.
And it's basically founded by Dr. Musculoskeletal, who is a Russian psychologist by training.
Okay.
Yeah. And through her work with trauma patients, people who have suffered physical and mental and lots of issues, traumatic issues, she developed this method. Okay. And it's basically a set of protocols. Okay. It's very comprehensive that deals with many different diagnosis.
Okay.
Yeah, so you can have someone who is having speech and communication difficulties.
Okay.
We have a protocol for that. You can have someone who is on the autism spectrum. We also have a number of things that we can do for that. You might have ADHD, which is very common, it's on the rise today. Dyslexia, we have set of protocols for pretty much everything. And the reason why we can say that is because at its foundation, we're dealing with the brain, connecting with the body, we're dealing with the nervous system. And if you work with the nervous system with these protocols, they actually help all diagnoses, and even those who are undiagnosed. A lot of the families who come to us are children who are not diagnosed with anything, but they're dysregulated. Teachers, adults, parents are complaining about them. Some of them are having a lot of anxiety or stress. So we use MNRI, and it is really amazing. It really helps with calming down the nervous system. Yeah. So these set of protocols, right? A lot of it is touch-based and movement-based. And we work with all the different sensory systems. So we work with the visual processing, visual tracking. We work with a vestibular gravity, which is inside the inner ear, so there's movement as well. We work with oral motor, speech and language, right? All of that. But the one that is the most important one, in my viewpoint, is that the one that's missing from all the other therapies out there is the part that really involves something called proprioception. Yeah, I'm not sure if you're familiar with that word.
No, I'm not. I wanted to ask you that. What it is.
Yeah, so our senses, we smell, we taste, right? We touch, we hear, all that. Right? Proprioception is your ability to know where your body is in space. For example, today, if you pass me a glass of water and then I'm blindfolded, right? I would be able to put my hand up, kind of feel to where the glass of water is, and I would be able to adjust myself quite easily without spilling the water. But if you have someone who doesn't understand their own body, how it moves in space, they don't really understand the elbow, the shoulders, how to position them, they're going to overreach, underreach, spill water. They might completely miss the cup, right? And so usually when their eyes are open, they're actually using the eyes to help them. But proprioception is something natural that's inside you. So when we work with the proprioception, we're using our hands to do a lot of touch, tactility, and we really connect with the brain to teach directions. Because children these days have problems with understanding the body and spatial awareness, how to move in space in regards to directions.
I still don't understand the whole space formula. Like you mean like in an area like it's vast and then you don't know how to move around. So the example that you gave was closed eyes is the same way how these children who have open eyes and still don't know how to move around their hands.
The children that I work with, right, some of them have pretty severe needs, some of them have mild needs, right? But the one common factor is that there's some kind of disconnect with them, the brain and the body. They don't understand the body as well. So if I have a problem with spatial awareness, it's a therapy term. I would be kind of fidgeting all the time because I'm holding my body posture like this. But after a few minutes, I'm going to get fatigued and I'm going to constantly shift and adjust. If I'm standing up, I would be wanting to lean against the wall or lean against the human, you, or lean against furniture. I just don't seem to have a strong posture. I'm more like a jellyfish or something soft because I don't understand my body. I don't know how to coordinate my body. So space is just any space. Yeah. And so the children sometimes are at school and because they don't really understand the body spatial awareness, right? They might bump into people behind them, in front of them when they're lining up, right? They may not know how to put the things into the backpack or take out a backpack. So for us, we can pile things up neatly, we can organize stuff, and we can put the biggest item into a school bag, and then another.
First the small items, then the small items.
Yeah, so if they don't understand the body, it's very hard to understand all that. So it's going to be a range, a spectrum. It's not going to be completely what I said. But children with ADHD, for example, they're not so good with organization skills. We call that executive functioning skills. So if they can't organize the things and put them in a backpack, it goes to back to their body, because you have to understand your body really well. When we do work with our hands, right, with children, and I ask them to do all these different, different assessment things just to check their understanding, because dyslexia, you can do this type of work, right? Some of them get to the point where they have to physically look at the fingers,
right?
Otherwise they cannot get it right.
Right.
So there's a lot of compensations happening. Yeah,
right.
Spatial awareness.
So basically they're not aware of their hands and legs. Like when they have to look at it.
Yeah, disassociation.
Disassociation. With their hands and legs that they have to.
Or they may understand it, but just not very efficiently. So with MNRI, we do a lot of touch, right, with my hand. So I'd come over to you. I would do rotations for your joints, because joints can help you change directions, right? So I would hold your hand, work with the hands, work with the feet, get you to do movements and so on, right? And all that will help your brain understand the boundaries. It's like giving a geography lesson of your body to the brain to understand, okay, this is the map of your brain and this is how it works. So some children may understand to a degree, but they're not super efficient. For example, children who come to us, because we also get them to do some movement, jumping, especially some kids who like to move around, right? So then they would jump or hop, and we tell them to do different things. And then we will be able to tell the parents, it looks like your child learned how to do this from learning from practice, from somebody teaching them, because it didn't come naturally. And the parents say, how can you tell? Because the movements look different. With MNRI, we're trying to work with a foundation, so then things happen in a natural way. So then it allows a doorway for more development in the future, rather than having to teach everything. I don't know if that makes sense.
That does. Yes,
so we want to automate it and natural.
Right.
More patterns.
Coming by themselves. That brings me to the next question. How do parents actually pick up those signs that, okay, something is wrong and I should seek help?
This really does depend on the age of the child, right? So if you're dealing with a baby, a clear one is that if your baby is not reaching the milestones, because you're with different specialists and they'll be tracking in the chart for you, right? But it's more than that, because people check off the milestone chart.
Right.
Some of the movements or postures and things, they're actually not very efficient. For example, parents might say, oh, my child reached the tummy time.
Yeah.
Fine. Did crawling, fine. But actually, we want good patterns of crawling. We want good patterns of being able to sit and do things well. For that, you have to do some more reading, talking to specialists, or come and seek specialized support then to help you open your eyes to what else you can look for, right? So that's in a baby. But if you're dealing with a child who's at school, signs are constant fidgeting, like I said before. If they're hooking their feet to the chairs of the legs constantly. Sometimes we hook. If the chair is too high, too low, I do that too. But if your child is someone who's using that often to help support their posture, that's a sign. A child who's W sitting, that's a massive sign.
But every child turns up sitting in a W position. Some or the other time in there.
Not long time ago. These days, yes. Yeah, these days a lot more. Yeah, a lot more. So W sitting, young children would do that as they're getting stronger and stronger. But usually by a certain age, we're supposed to not do that, because what happens is that when you're W sitting, you're using your bones and your hip sockets to support your body. All the time. And so then your body is not given the opportunity, your brain is not given opportunity to practice certain skills. Yes, because we really need to understand this midline here. We really need to understand the middle, so our brain can do the job the brain's supposed to do and make a lot of connections. But if we always take in the easy way outwards, the bones are strong.
Right.
But if we're sitting and just using the hips, your legs are bent and you're almost like a Japanese style, like those ladies who sit on the floor. That's one way. If some kids cannot do that and their legs come out in a W, it means they're really, really poorly coordinated with the core, to the chest, to the head. Yeah, and then they prefer to be upright, W sitting. But if you're sitting like a, sorry, I had to use that term, but Japanese style like that, your back is actually getting some more practice, and your head is like leaning forward a little bit, so your posture is slightly on an incline, which means the brain is processing gravity.
Oh.
Yeah. We need our head control. I guarantee you, all those W-sitters, most. Let me change that. Most. If you reposition them correctly, and then you get them to kind of lean forward like this, eventually the head is going to get really tired and they'll flop really low or really like this. They don't really know how to have good control of the head. And I mentioned a lot about head control. And I realized when I talk about that, I think parents are thinking, oh, my child has good head control. Like right now I'm showing good head control, but my posture is easy. I'm just upright. But if you were to put me in certain positions where my head, my trunk is on a diagonal, my head is going to start being less controlled. Then you see obvious signs. If you touch this like this, they might fall down, right? You touch it, or they'll overly do it because they haven't been working on those areas. The hip sockets, bones have been doing all the work.
So how does it affect later on in your life?
These are reflexes that should have integrated during the baby stages.
So we call them the primary reflexes, or?
Yeah. So the term that's known is the primitive reflexes. Dr. Maksutova with MNRI prefers the term primary reflexes. But in regards to the public understanding, either term is fine. But most of them should have been integrated as babies. Some of them will be integrating as they're walking, standing up, because your body is getting from the floor and standing up, right? But by the age of 7 or 8, if a child hasn't integrated certain reflexes called symmetrical tonic neck reflex, which is like W-sitting and a few others, it's going to affect all the other reflexes for integrating. Yeah, that's why the first 12 months is super, super important. Even babies who seem to be good, it's good to just get them checked out. And we do also work with babies. Yeah, I've had a 2-week-old baby come for a simple check, so it's good to get ahead and front load and try to prevent issues rather than have to deal with challenges that come. Yeah. So there's actually many signs. Yeah, and I'm really, really hoping through talking about this, it gives parents, and teachers, anybody who works with children, some food for thought. And then for them to start conversations and ask questions, because that's my whole purpose, right?
Yeah. Many times, but we want nature to take its own course.
Yeah.
Like sometimes, if the child is not crawling at this time, maybe after some time the child will start crawling or sitting upright. All the milestones. We want to give the child some time. So then how do we differentiate that? Okay, fine, should we pick up the signs now or should we wait for the child to take some time and do it himself?
Yeah, different people have different opinions. So this is just my opinion, right? I don't want parents to panic. Panic is not good.
Exactly.
It doesn't serve us.
Right.
And feeling guilty or worried doesn't serve us, right? But what is helpful is to understand there are things that you can do. Right? So if there's a baby, you have a baby, beautiful baby, love the baby, it is good to do some exercises that you can get ahead of, right? So when it comes to education, like academics and schoolwork, I'm not someone who likes to say, let's give the child 10 sessions of tutoring so that they can get same content 2-3 times so they are always acing an exam. It's nice to get good examination results and stuff, but that's not what I was saying. In regards to babies and crawling movement patterns, these movement patterns are for life. Yeah, and it's never too much in a way, because babies and children, when they're playing, they're working. Yeah. So if you have a 3-month-old baby and you suspect there's something not quite right or is delayed, let's go for it. Let's seek advice. Let's ask questions, and do something about it, because these are brain wiring, body movements that serves for life. And babies are having fun interacting with you. You can do a lot of things as a mom, as a dad, and it's playtime, it's interaction with the baby. It's actually very joyful.
Right.
Yeah, it's not stressful,
Yes.
anxiety-inducing. Like a 10-year-old, you're making a child do math or Chinese or science over and over and over. It's
Right.
not the same
It's not the same.
experience at all. So with a baby, you can play games, you can do things, and they just want to interact with you anyway. Yeah, and the biggest thing you can do for a baby is to put the baby on the tummy. And a really good, nice tummy time, a good head control is when the hands can come up, the chest is nice and strong, and the head comes up and can starting to turn around, look around. That's like, by some tummy time when the baby is kind of propped and supported by the elbows and shoulders, and the head's kind of like low. Tummy time, yes, but really not efficient. Then you have to say, okay, head control is not quite there.
Okay.
Those are the signs.
What is the process of the MNRI method? Like, how do you go about it if a parent comes to you, let's say for any crawling, not dysfunctional, like the child is not able to crawl the right way, then how do you go about it?
Yeah, so for us at Neural Connections, what we do is that we play, we interact with the child.
Okay.
We do some assessments, some testing, because there are reflexes that we can test for.
Right.
And then we see the responses to how the child performs or responds to that. And then we have a conversation with the parents within the session. And then basically I share what my observations are, and I give my recommendations, and I'm happy to answer questions that the parents have. Yeah, so it's usually a 50-minute session at Neural Connections for me.
What about the kids who go to school and we see a lot of them having problems with reading, writing, or having the attention span is not that great?
Yeah.
So how do you help kids at that age?
All of our treatments are very tailored, very customized, personalized for each child. We have a number of different protocols, and we just pick the ones that's really good for that particular child. But the therapy does have a combination of still work. So we work with the body, and also movement. For a child who is at school and who has poor focus, attention focus, who is having difficulty with work, they really need to have some reflexes, spinal reflexes worked on. And what we do is that initially we would do it passively on the child. So let's say some parents also ask it for themselves. They schedule appointments. Parents do it for themselves. So like for you, for example, we would put you like on the table, on the floor, and we would stroke your spine. And it's very gentle. It's non-invasive. It's like a massage. And then we would work on with the sacrum. It may look like a little bit like Pilates sometimes, like osteopathic work. And then we kind of put your body in certain positions. And then because you're very capable, we'll ask you to hold that pose. And then we would give you a little bit of push where you have to resist against the push. Because if you're resisting against my hand pushing, your brain is receiving the feedback and it's taking time to process that, and that strengthens your body. So that spinal reflex, which is spinal galant, spinal Perez, helps the child stay seated longer. Today, I'm sitting here. I don't know how long this podcast interview has been happening. I'm quite comfortable. But some children will not be able to sit in a sustained. They might do it for a few minutes here and there. Yeah, and then you will see them slumping over the tables and changing this way or that way, or then they have to it's because all these reflexes are interfering. The ATNR is affected, the spinal galant is there, spinal Perez is there, the visual tract, there's a lot, STNR. So these kids who are at school, very smart, but we need to do some work, we just get it done. And there are some who don't like to lie still, then we just play games.
Parents' help really matters. Like, do you teach the parents how to go about with the child? And then they need to practice that at home also with the child.
So my personal experience, I'm very passionate about this. And for me, this is about the brain. And then we don't do things in isolation. We really need to go in and just practice. We cannot treat it like some centers you drop off.
Exactly.
And then go and pick up. Because if you're coming to see us, we really are going to be rolling up our sleeves. We're going to really go in and work together with you. Right? If you're working full-time and you don't have a lot of capacity, then we can have a conversation how we can make it work. But the truth of the matter is, the more the child practices or receives the work, with some work, the children may not need to do anything because there's a lot of touch work.
Okay.
That looks like a massage, but it's not a massage, okay? It's brain work. But some of them, the children don't need to do anything because you may have some children who may not be super compliant or super cooperative, especially with parents. Then we can work with, the grandparents. We can work with a helper. We can discuss certain things, or we make or break things down really easily, and we suggest some ways that you can go around doing that. But yes, partnership with family is really, really, really important because we want this work to really, because if a child is 7 years old, right? We are not just going to continue. We're actually going to go back to the root causes, and because the brain has the hierarchy, we're actually dealing with a lot of areas in the lower parts of the brain, the brainstem.
Right.
Yeah, and so we don't want to just continue because you find that if you do this therapy, that therapy, that therapy, that therapy, most of them are very cognitive based. They use words and language. I may understand the word left, right, up, down, but I may not actually move my body efficiently. I may not be able to just turn my head comfortably, automatically to the left, to the right, up and down, or I may be able to do that, but everything's spilling out. So, so we need to work with the body. Yeah, and so the best way to get this, which is neuroplasticity, partnership with the home is very important.
It has to be a continual process. It has to
Correct.
go on at home also.
Yes, for
Right.
best effects.
Hsiao, you talked about nutrition
Yes,
and you talked about sleep.
yes.
So could you tell us how it's linked? Nutrition, sleep, outdoor play. How is all of them linked?
Everything is connected, right? When it comes to modern medicine, things are specialized because it's just easier. It's just easier to have a different specialist for different body parts, right? The brain, everything's connecting, right? You can see all the firing of synapses and brain wiring. So we may be able to approach it separately, but actually everything is connected.
Okay.
So when it comes to someone, for example, my daughter, and she's an example of many other children we also see, if a child is not sleeping well, they're gonna get a little bit more fatigued. They don't have enough energy to pay attention at school. They may be prone to a lot of illnesses because they're just tired. Okay. Do you know what I mean? And so today, a lot of children are very deprived of good sleep. Just not enough sleep for what the demands are. So sleep is really important. When my daughter was going through all the medical problems, her sleep was very poor. Really, really poor. And we recognized that we needed to work on her sleep. But it's not just like, go to sleep.
Right.
Because you tell a child to go to sleep, they may lie in bed and the brain is just wired. They're constantly shifting. They don't know how to just regulate themselves, right? MNRI works amazingly with sleep. We have so many testimonials. I've seen it myself. We see it at the work with the children. The children's sleep improves. Not just the sleep, but the quality of sleep.
Exactly, because we as adults, I think we also take a lot of time to sleep. We toss around and try to sleep. We take around good 20 to 30 minutes to actually get into sleep.
Yes. We actually coach parents on certain techniques to do at bedtime. It's like a nice bonding time with the kids. You're getting the work in the child and you're settling them down to get a really good time with sleep. Because sleep, it should be protected.
Okay.
Sleep time should not be the last thing to you should protect sleep and try to do other things after you've already dedicated time to sleep.
Right.
Yeah. And then this part is not the MNRI aspect, but for us in Neural Connections, we really do talk about sleep hygiene, about all the different things. And I have a lot of different tips and suggestions and hacks that I give parents. And I say, this is what we need to do. Sleep is a massive contributor to challenges. Yeah. So sleep is there. Nutrition and health, gut health is there as well. Right. You may have a child who eats good food. Parents are very, very, very conscientious about giving whole foods, lots of this, lots of that. But some children, they are poor absorbers. They don't absorb nutrients well.
So how do we know that?
It's just, you can get testing done We don't do testing, but I can refer people to get testing. But what I do is that I go through a checklist. I actually do a health assessment.
Okay.
So I do a health assessment, and we cover the areas of food, nutrition, exercise, sleep, MNRI, all of it. And then it also provides certain health products just to help boost the brain. And then we talk about what does that mean to be regulated, because a lot of times most of the issues that parents seek out our support for is actually regulation.
Okay.
So it's very hard to make real improvement with regulation if the sleep is an issue.
Okay.
Yeah. Even if there's not enough sleep, we can improve the quality of sleep. Okay. Yeah, and to improve the quality of sleep, it may be that we need to look at boosting more, certain nutrients that are high in fats, protein, fish, oil. We also talk about supplements as well, because the supplements, is a huge thing. It's all around us. But the question I want to ask parents is that how do they choose supplements?
Right.
How do they know what's good and what's not?
And to start giving them at that age.
Yeah.
Start that
you
early.
you can though, but with children that we work with, because they are quite poor with the immune system, they're quite vulnerable, they do need to have a boost. Okay. And you can give them good food, but all the good food is still not making any difference. Then we also talk about detoxing, pooping, peeing as well, right? Okay. And then with everything, I really coach them on finding the right quality of whatever it's necessary, right? So if you're going to be doing, because a lot of parents do take supplements and they come to me and I'm like, how do you know they're the good quality supplements?
Right.
Yeah, you don't know. We have to find pharmaceutical level, pharmaceutical grade, and there are. I went through a lot of this with my own daughter.
Okay.
Yeah, because to boost her. Today she just takes a few, but when she was when I was working with her gut, I did boost quite a lot.
Okay.
And I found it very effective. But this is not necessarily, you do what it's right for you, right. But we just have a discussion. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And it's very important that parents ask questions.
Yes.
That's all. You ask questions, one door opens, another door opens, but it can get quite overwhelming. So that's why it's good just to talk to specialists who can also advise.
Ideally, as parents, for us, it's like if the child is tired, he's done enough of play outside and has eaten his 3 meals properly, then we think that he's going to get a good sleep and he's going to have a quality sleep. Is that true?
Not necessarily. I think as parents know their children. If they think about it, they'll go, oh, actually, my child is lying in bed and is really, really wired because he or she is just not regulated. The truth is, a lot of the children these days, especially in an urban setting, they're not getting enough movement. Okay. And movement that's outdoors. Children are like plants, like living things. It's actually quite simple. Simple is not easy always, but it's actually quite simple. With a plant, you need to have good soil, you need to water it, you need to have sun, and then it will grow bigger and taller. Children are kind of the same. Yeah, we need these basic ingredients to have the ability to thrive. If some of these ingredients are missing up or are poor or not good in the quality, then it's gonna cause some effects. Yeah, and in today's environment, if you look around, pretty much a huge percentage. I need to watch my word carefully because I sometimes so but a huge percentage of kids these days are getting younger and younger, and they're all wearing glasses. But some of them, you can delay the progression of myopia. You can delay the progression of visual processing things. A lot of movement outside is the best.
Okay.
But sometimes movement itself is not just a movement. You really want them to get out there, sweat. Yeah, and Singapore has lots of pockets of greenery, actually. Right. Doesn't have to be like make a trip, go to Kranji. Doesn't mean that. Like during COVID, for example, when my kids were younger, I'll make them run around the lab. Okay. Yeah, every hour. Because when children run, they're actually so super regulating. It regulates them. Okay. Yeah, they come back, the cheeks are rosy, they're kind of sweaty, the heart's pumping. Right. It's a real rush of endorphins.
Yes.
So you're reducing the stress hormones, you're producing hormones that's good for the brain neurotransmitters. Right. And they're like, because they've had a big workout, they understand the body's had a lot of, the running and movement, they're ready to do some work. So because we were like, circuit breaker, right? Or at home, so every hour make them go for a walk or do something.
Right.
Or we had a trampoline, jump. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's ways to get around it.
Yeah.
Yeah. For the health of your child, movement is really important.
Right.
Yeah.
So get them in any of the spots if possible.
Yes. Yeah. There are times when we do have children who come to us and they're very, very smart. We see a lot of children in mainstream schools, by the way.
Okay.
They're not all special needs. Many of them are in mainstream school, maybe 50%.
Okay.
But they have dysregulation issues, right? Or some of them are very sporty. They do soccer, they do gymnastics. They're champions, actually, but they have dyslexia.
Okay.
Or they have something just impacting on them. Yeah, so sometimes it's a little bit more than just movement. It has to be specialized movement that we know that will help with the specific challenges, the movement for the directions and stuff.
So I actually wanted to ask you this, that do you only see kids who have certain challenges, or do you also see kids who want to excel in sports, you know, or maybe the emotional well-being?
MNRI is basically, it's a method that works with everybody. Okay. As long as you have a nervous system, it can help you. Oh. Yeah. So Dr. Maskatova and her team, you know, overseas, they've worked with athletes who want to kind of give and have an extra edge, because we can use the natural reflex patterns to give a bit of performance boost. Then there are actually lots of podcasts that she's given and she talks about that. So people are welcome to go and listen to that, right? Okay. So for us and Neural Connections, we've worked with children who are twice exceptional. Twice exceptional means that they're very gifted and their IQ is being tested and they're like working at a genius level. Yeah. But they actually do not really understand the body really well. So they're at school, they dazzle everybody because they're so smart and they love to learn. They love how to operate things and they're working much higher than their peers, right? So everyone loves them, everyone. But at home, meltdowns happen after school because they're exhausted. Right. Yeah, because during the day, they're compensating because the fine motor skills are not super efficient because their reflexes are not integrated. So they're constantly, you know, compensating, adjusting, doing things, but they're super smart. It's twice exceptional, right? So we have worked with children who are gifted that way. We work with a lot of children who are in main school. Yeah. We also work with children who are homeschool kids. Yeah. And we also work with verbal and non-verbal children or like, you know, special needs. Yeah. And MNRI can help with really all challenges.
Just trying to understand the root cause of it. How does those dysfunctional happen? Like how does those reflex integration, how does that happen?
Yeah, it's a great question. I get asked that a lot. Basically, the simplest way to say it is that if there are interruptions to the natural development of these reflex patterns, right? And the interruptions can happen before birth inside the womb because the reflexes begin developing in utero. Right, so the environment, we want the environment to be good. Sometimes, especially during COVID, I think there were a lot of ladies who were very anxious or, stressed.
They're bound to go through that.
Yeah,
stress,
and there are a lot of stress hormones going on. So I think it does affect the womb environment. So interruptions to the natural development of the reflexes inside the womb. During birth itself, because during birth, nature is just really smart. Mother Nature, I mean, we're supposed to do certain things and it just flows so naturally. Right. But when there's something that doesn't quite work, it's never that one thing. It's usually like a cascade or like a perfect storm where lots of factors, right? So during birth, there can be interruptions to the natural development. And post-birth, the thing is like, we have like a checklist of red flags. And so kids who come to us, because we have a questionnaire, okay. For the most part, it's not everybody. For the most part, these kids have had C-section births, or there were emergency C-section with umbilical tied around the neck, or there were breech babies, or something's happened, or the mother was bound like for rest, the last trimester because it's high risk pregnancy, right? So and then after they're born. A huge percentage were bottle fed. They were not able to suck and swallow, nursed over there. Right. Yeah. Some of them end up with like a tweak with torticollis, something like that. So they had poor sucking reflexes, which later on can affect the speech and language, right? And so it's just cascades of things, and then the milestones is not being developed, not being met. Okay. There are babies who were C-section babies, and they're fine, right? They're fine. So it's not every single one, because if I don't say that, I know that parents who hear this, they're going to start questioning a lot of things, and I do not intend or mean for people to get so upset, because being moms, being dads, this is a very emotional journey, and we try our best. Yes. We really try our best. And we don't want to go back and relive everything and get so stressed and worked up. The journey is onwards, right? Yeah. But I'm sharing my experience that if it's possible, try to not do too many medical interventions if possible, and let's get the children doing things that's natural. Not that we want to change and go back hundreds of years, but these days in modern lifestyle, there are too many conveniences. For babies who are constantly being carried by helpers, nannies, babies who are in the boxes, capsules, right, on the back all the time, in the strollers, they're being denied opportunities. So this goes back to the question that what can parents do? Yes. If you're a mother or a dad, whoever, and you have a baby, please try to limit those conveniences of the boxes, right? Or, things that holds the baby. Do that when you have to. If you're going from place to place, you have to wear the seatbelt, you have to put the baby in the baby capsule in the car, do all that. But whenever possible, clear the floor, put the baby on the tummy. Right? If you worry about safety, prop baby up a little bit, whatever. But the baby needs to learn to move, needs to learn to do a lot of things if they're on the back. But if you're on the tummy, the visual kicks in, then the turning kick in, this is what we call prone position. You're down the floor or you're more leaning forward. You start being aware of all the things around you. You can have better eye contact. Right. A lot of things gets activated, and that can begin from a very early age. It doesn't have to be from 6 months or 4 months. It can be earlier than that, as long as you just watch out for the natural things, right? Yeah, so try to reduce the modern conveniences, because they don't serve the brain.
What is that one myth that parents believe about brain development, but that's actually not a myth, but a reality?
Parents get told a lot of things, right? So I think I know what you mean. So I'll just give an example of what I think you mean, right? So for example, parents who are familiar with the term crossing the midline, and they're told for the children to do cross crawls, where they're getting the elbows and then the cross knee together like this, right? Okay, so yeah, crossing midline is very important, very good for the brain. But it's not just a matter of like this, because when children do it, the arm and the legs are doing a lot of work. But the core, the trunk with the head is actually the target, and that's not actually being done correctly. For example, when we cross the midline, these children are actually just looking to the side and twisting. Their upper body is going one direction, the lower body is twisting that direction in order to bring this together. But real crossing the midline is all about this pattern of coming together. It's to do with brain patterns. Yeah, I can explain that further in the future, or there are articles about that. But then the other thing is, for example, crawling. So parents think crawling and they think about hands and knees. For us, our crawling, we really go even further. Beyond. We go into belly crawling before the hands and knees, because hands and knees are joints, bones. Yes. Most children cannot crawl. They may not crawl really well, but they can still crawl on hands and knees. But if you put a baby who crawl on hands and knees, but you put them on the tummy to ask them to crawl, right? Belly crawling, they will struggle. Yeah. Our target is tummy to work on the core and the midline, to go on the floor as much as possible, and then crawl looking straight ahead. A lot of these children, when they crawl, their butt is up in the air, they're wiggling side to side, and then their head's turning this way, their head's turning that way. That doesn't serve the brain to develop, because and this comes naturally. It should come naturally. If it doesn't, there's something going on, right? My daughter, all her milestones came naturally. She crawled very well, no problem. Never had to have an intervention. This is just a natural way.
Right.
But my other one, my oldest one, everything we had to teach her.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? So with crawling, ask your child to go home, try and crawl, and then you see there's some weird patterns happening. And crawling should be super efficient. It's just straight. It shouldn't be like a freestyle swimming because they're like this, like this, like this, right? Because eye tracking, we want the bilateral vision. We want to be midline. We want eyes to be able to work like this as a team. These two need to work together as a team. And they need to be able to scan the horizon. That's why we're going forward. So there's intention. I'm a baby. I want to pick up that bear, the teddy bear. My mommy or daddy's come through the door. I'm going to crawl straight. So it actually, crawling actually works on developing motivation. So children who didn't crawl, who have poor motivation, this is the reason.
Wow.
Yes. Oh, yeah. With our reflex patterns, we can tell you a lot of things about the behavior, about personality, and about the mental anxiety and stress. Because this is actually about nervous system, which is like stress. This is about stress and trauma, actually.
Wow. This is the first time I'm actually getting to know that it's linked to motivation.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. If those kids who have poor motivation, most likely didn't crawl very well or something. So I want to say there's case by case, right?
Right.
If you're a baby and you've been looking forward to your mommy and daddy coming home, the door opens, you want to just get there, and babies can't walk. So they crawl over there, right? So then there's a lot of proprioception with the tummy being shoved down on the floor and you're gliding. And the work is not super hard. The hands and the feet are just there as an anchor just to help. But most of the work is actually the head and the trunk, right? And straight to the door, mommy's home, you're happy, right? But if you're a baby who has a whole bunch of issues, that's not going to happen. You might wiggle and you might use your arms and legs too much. This part is not being used. And you might try to push your butt up in the air, or you might end up going side to side, because if you do side to side, your brain is not getting the same vision processing it needs. So that one hit of what we call bowel crawling, which is belly crawling, is huge. And I can tell you, I think pretty much all the kids, even the mainstream kids we work with, do not do that very well. Yeah, and it's super easy. If you and I would get on the floor, we should be able to do it. And then as adults, if we don't do it super well, it's because of lifestyle over the years. We're a little bit old, we're almost hitting 50, that's me, or there's certain injuries and stuff. But we can still practice and we can get there. But for children who do not do this well, and they have to have a lot of practice because it doesn't come naturally. If we can't do it, we can practice and we can get it back because we had it.
Right.
We may not be super efficient now because of factors, but we had it. We were okay. But these kids who are having dysregulation, they're having meltdowns, they're having arguments all the time with brother and sister at home or at school because they can't focus, right? They're fidgeting, and then they end up distracting other children because they're bored, right? Or they want to mask that they're having an issue. All children really are not trying to be naughty. Children are not trying to be naughty. Those ones who are getting in trouble, it's actually a call for help. So as adults, we need to really think about what's going on and ask why, rather than try to correct the behavior.
Right.
If we seek to understand, then we understand the behavior is just part of it. And then we go into the root causes, right?
So try to get into the whys and not try to
Absolutely, yeah.
We would love to hear some of your successful stories.
We're really blessed, really. Pretty much every family just gives us a lot of good positive feedbacks, and then it keeps driving us to do more and more. We don't need to have people stay with us forever. We don't actually want that. We want them to get what they need and go. So for this particular boy, he's very, very, very smart. He was 4 or 5 years old at the time when he came to us. Very auditory sensitive, didn't like loud noises, couldn't go to crowds because he was getting overstimulated. But super smart, into science, the planets, math. Clever boy. We had 2 sessions with him. And then the mom gave us a huge comment, and on WhatsApp about him getting his first haircut in years. And that really stood out. And after that, she would share stories, and I've got them all on my phone, about going to the science center in Jurong.
Okay.
And seeing the fire, all that. And she was mind blown how he was there. And then he would participate, ask all the because sometimes they have teenagers demonstrating things. He got really involved. So he wasn't even getting highly stimulated. That was after a few months of work,
Right.
Yeah, another success story is a little girl with ASD. They did an intensive. The family, scheduled her for intensive with us. After a few sessions for that week, her sleep improved by 2 hours.
Wow.
Yeah, and then the week after the treatment, the teachers at school said her fine motor improved, more eye contact. I mean, we have so many stories, really.
Right.
Yeah, it's a lot, yeah.
Right.
But self-regulation is the one thing that really does respond fairly quickly.
My last question would be, what is the future of MNRI?
Yeah.
And what is the future for Neural Connections?
I really want more people to understand their ways to do things that is outside what you already know, right? So MNRI would be great if you can read up about it, whether it's for you or not for you, but learn from it. MNRI around the world is just picking up momentum because it's been around since 1989, I believe.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But because Dr. Masutova is a real purist, she does a lot of research. Her focus has not been business.
Right.
Yeah, there are other programs who are very good at marketing, doing promotion stuff. If you go into MNRI website, you see so much research. It's backed by science. We have so many, I mean, I can't stress this enough, but more and more people are understanding it. So my hope is that to help people connect and understand that. But also, just MNRI itself cannot be the answer to everything. No matter what good therapy is, there's not one magic thing. If your sleep, your health is not great, if your digestion, if you have gut issues, if you have anxiety and stress, and then your stomach is bubbly and then you end up having constipation or diarrhea, all of that is related, right? Mental wellness is part of that. You have
Right.
a lot of neurodiverse teenagers, right? And they're on the screen and they're probably could do with a boost of quality magnesium and they're not getting it through the diet. There's many different things. So we do also need to look at that.
Okay.
But when you combine those two together, it's magic. So for me, in regards to neural connections, I'm expanding. I really want to get ahead in front of people and talk and educate, and learn, because I'm also learning.
Right.
I'm not giving all the answers, but I feel like I'm connecting people to different ideas. And so for me, it's like good health, MNRI
Right.
together is wonderful. And with Neural Connections, I want to delve more than just this or this. I want people to understand the connections of everything, and it really does affect the brain. That's why the company is called Neural Connections. I chose those terms very carefully many years ago. My husband and I were thinking about this.
Right.
There is a better way, not to say what you're doing is wrong, but don't just follow everybody.
Right.
Try to simplify if it's possible.
Exactly. That's very important. Rather than complicating things, you should simplify as much as you can for the parents.
For Neural Connections, I want to work with parents more. That's where we're headed. Rather than just dealing with the children, we want to deal with parents because it's very hard to pour from an empty cup. If you as a parent, you have nothing to give, you're just going to get yourself even more tired driving your child or taking your child on the MRT, running errands around. It's more important just to try and create some space, try to simplify. Less is more.
Yes, any day.
And you do it better. Yeah. For us, my daughter was having all of these therapies and we had all these teachers complain about her behavior and about her lack of, focus and testing results and blah, blah. I'm like, enough. Cut. We did the ultimate simplification, which is homeschooling. And I gotta tell you, the homeschooling journey was not easy, but it did give us opportunity to really take a pause and take a deep breath and figure out. And I think space to figure things out, space to ask questions, space to figure out and not just go, 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 go. It's important. So for parents who want to give this a go, give it a go. But over time, see if they can reduce something and do this more.
Right.
Do it better.
Right.
Yeah. We, the co-founder of MNRI, her motto, she always says this, Pamela Curley, she always says this, simple is profound. Right. And I really believe in that.
I absolutely agree with that,
It's not easy, but it's profound.
Exactly. So true.
Yeah.
What my understanding of MNRI would be that it's an holistic approach.
Yes.
And it talks about optimal health.
Yes. So actually, at its essence, it's about health.
Right.
And then when the health is happening, you can boost lots of things.
Yes.
Then the schooling, everything becomes easier.
Right.
And children thrive.
Right.
And they are happy.
Yes.
And because they're happy, they're curious, they want to learn.
Yeah.
Right? And then they will go out and learn, and they'll try and find things to occupy themselves. Don't have to schedule them so much.
Right. Thank you, Hsiao, for coming. It was a pleasure having you here.
Thank you.
And have a small gift for you.
Oh, wow. Oh, thank you so much. Wow.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Hope you got some great insights about MNRI and you're ready to give it a try. See you next week. Thank you, everyone, for tuning into all our episodes. I hope you get some great insights about parenting. Please share this episode with all your family members and your friends, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button. See you next time.